Anxious Attachment Recovery, From Clingy to Confident, End the Anxiety Spiral, Trust Your Partner and Build Secure Love That Actually Lasts. By Sophie Marston. Introduction. In 1970, in a small, plain room in Baltimore, Maryland, a woman named Mary Ainsworth was watching a baby through a one-way mirror. Most people at the time thought babies were simple. They thought if you fed a child and kept them warm, they would grow up just fine. Some experts even warned parents that hugging their children too much would spoil them and make them weak. But Mary suspected there was something much deeper happening in the human heart. She created an experiment called the strange situation. It was simple, but stressful. A mother and her baby would play in a room full of toys. Then a stranger would walk in. A few minutes later, the mother would leave. The goal was to see how the baby handled being left with a stranger, and more importantly, how the baby acted when the mother came back. Most babies cried when their moms left. That was normal. But when the mothers returned, the babies acted in very different ways. Some babies ran to their moms, got a quick hug, and then went right back to playing with their blocks. They were secure. They knew their anchor was back, so they felt safe enough to be kites again, flying out into the world to explore. Then there were the unlikely heroes of this story, the babies who couldn't stop crying. Even when their mothers picked them up and tried to soothe them, these babies stayed angry. They would kick or push the toys away. They were terrified that if they let go, the mother might disappear again. Mary called this anxious ambivalent attachment. To the doctors of the 1950s, these babies looked difficult or clingy. But Mary saw the truth. These babies weren't broken. They were smart. They had learned that their caregivers were inconsistent. Sometimes the love was there, sometimes it wasn't. To survive, these babies had to turn up the volume. They had to scream louder and cling tighter just to make sure they weren't forgotten. If you are reading this, you might feel like one of those babies who never quite stopped screaming. You might feel like the clingy one in your friendships, or the needy one in your marriage. You might feel like you are too much for people to handle. You are not broken. You are just using an old survival map in a new world, and it is making you exhausted. The weight of the invisible chain. That feeling of a tight knot in your stomach when someone doesn't text back isn't just in your head. It is a physical reaction that starts deep in your brain. For many of us, love feels less like a warm blanket and more like an invisible chain. We spend our days checking the length of that chain. Is it still there? Is the person on the other end pulling away? This struggle shows up in 1,000 small ways. It's the way you rewrite a text message 5 times because you don't want to sound crazy. It's the way your heart hammers against your ribs when your partner says, "We need to talk." It's the way you scan your partner's face the moment they walk through the door, looking for any tiny sign that their mood has shifted or that they are bored with you. This is what we call the anxious spiral. It starts with a tiny spark, a short reply, a missed call, a sigh, and it turns into a wildfire of thoughts. Are they mad? Did I do something wrong? Are they going to leave me? Once the spiral starts, it is almost impossible to stop. You find yourself doing things you promised you wouldn't do. You pick a fight just to get them to look at you. You apologize for things you didn't do just to keep the peace. You stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling through their social media, looking for clues that they are moving on. It is a miserable way to live. It feels like you are standing on a glass floor, waiting for the first crack to appear. You are constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. The worst part is the shame. You know you're being a lot, and that knowledge only makes you more anxious. You try to play it cool, but the pressure inside you just keeps building until you pop. A promise of solid ground. This book is about building a floor that isn't made of glass. It is about moving from that hyper-activated state, where your brain is always on high alert, to a place of secure attachment. By the time you finish these pages, you will be a different person. You will still be you, with your big heart and your deep empathy, but you will have a new set of tools. You will be able to see a read receipt on your phone and go back to your book without your heart rate spiking. You will be able to ask for what you need, like a hug or some reassurance, without feeling like a burden. You will learn how to soothe your own nervous system so that your okayness doesn't depend on someone else's mood. Most importantly, you will stop being attracted to people who run away and start being attracted to people who stay. This isn't just about positive thinking or loving yourself more. This is about biology. We are going to look at the hard science of why your brain treats a late text message like a life-threatening emergency. We are going to use evidence-based techniques to rewire those pathways. We are going to look at history, psychology, and real-life stories to show you that security is not a personality trait you were born without. It is a skill you can learn at any age. This approach works because it honors your need for connection. Many books tell you to just be independent or stop caring so much. That is bad advice. Humans are wired for connection. We need each other to survive. The goal isn't to stop needing people. It's to learn how to need them in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're drowning. Meet Maya. To see how this works in the real world, we are going to follow someone named Maya Vance. Maya is 32 years old and lives in Seattle. She is a senior graphic designer at a fast-paced agency. She's creative, kind, and very good at her job. If you met her at a coffee shop, you would think she has it all together. But Maya has a secret. Whenever she starts dating someone new, she loses herself. Right now, she is 3 months into a relationship with a man named Mark. Mark is a software engineer. He is steady, he is kind, and he seems to really like her. But Mark doesn't text much during the day. He gets focused on his code and forgets his phone exists. For Maya, this is torture. It is 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maya is sitting in her minimalist apartment, the blue light of her phone reflecting in her glasses. She sent Mark a text 4 hours ago. "How was your day?" He hasn't replied. Maya has checked her phone 34 times. She has opened their chat window and watched the active status. She saw him go online 10 minutes ago, but he didn't reply to her. Now the silent alarm is screaming inside her chest. Her heart is racing. Her stomach feels like it's full of lead. She starts the internal interrogation. Was I too much this weekend? Did I stay over too late? Maybe he realized I'm not as cool as he thought. Maybe he's talking to his ex. If he really cared, he would take 10 seconds to type good. It's not that hard. She picks up the phone. Her thumb hovers over the keyboard. She wants to send a follow-up. Something casual but pointed. Maybe, "I guess you're too busy for me tonight." Or maybe just. She knows she shouldn't. She knows it will make her look needy. But the pain of the silence is so great that she feels like she will explode if she doesn't do something to break it. She believes that if she doesn't monitor this relationship every second, it will simply dissolve into nothing. She feels like she is holding onto a rope, and Mark is slowly letting go of the other end. Maya represents all of us who have ever felt that panic. Throughout this book, we will watch Maya learn how to put the phone down. We will watch her face her past, set her first boundary, and eventually find out what happens when she stops chasing and starts standing still. The map ahead. The journey from clingy to confident is not a straight line, but it is a mapped-out path. We are going to take it one step at a time. First, we will travel back in time to meet the founding fathers of attachment. We will look at John Bowlby and the children of the London Blitz to understand why your need for others is actually a biological survival mechanism. We will look at Harry Harlow's famous monkey experiments to prove that comfort is just as important as food. This will help you stop blaming yourself for having feelings. Next, we will look at the architecture of the brain. You will learn about the silent alarm, the part of your brain called the amygdala that gets triggered when you feel rejected. We will look at how your brain can actually treat a breakup the same way it treats a physical burn. Understanding the why behind the pain is the first step to making it stop. Then, we will look at the anxious avoidant trap. This is the magnetic pull between people who want closeness and people who want space. We will use the life of Eleanor Roosevelt as a guide. She was a woman who started out deeply insecure and anxious, but grew into one of the most secure and powerful leaders in history. Her story will show us how to set boundaries that actually let love in instead of keeping it out. We will also learn practical, in-the-moment skills. You will learn the pause, the space between a scary thought and a frantic action. You will learn somatic soothing, ways to use your body to calm your mind when you are in the middle of a spiral. You will learn how to communicate your needs using nonviolent communication, so you can ask for reassurance without starting a fight. Finally, we will look at what a secure future looks like. We will learn how to build a self-sovereign life, a life where you are the anchor and your partner is the kite. And sometimes you switch. You will learn how to identify healthy partners and how to turn your current relationship into a safe haven. You don't have to live in a state of panic anymore. You don't have to be the person who is always waiting for a text. There is a way to feel safe, even when you are alone. There is a way to trust your partner, even when they are far away. The wall of anxiety you have built around your heart wasn't built in a day, and it won't come down in a day. But it can be dismantled, one brick at a time. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Architecture of Need. In 1944, a group of 44 teenagers in London were being watched very closely. To the local police, they were just young criminals caught stealing from shops or homes. To the rest of the world, they were delinquents who needed a firm hand and a cold room. But to a doctor named John Bowlby, they were a puzzle that might explain why some people feel safe in the world and others feel like they are constantly standing on thin ice. At the same time, in hospitals across Europe and America, a different kind of tragedy was unfolding in silence. Newborn babies were being kept in perfectly clean white rooms. They were fed on a strict schedule. They were given the best medicine money could buy. Their sheets were washed and their rooms were warm. Yet many of these babies were failing to grow. Some were simply closing their eyes and slipping away, dying from what doctors called failure to thrive. They had food, but they were starving. Back in a modern apartment in Seattle, Maya Vance sits on the edge of her sofa. It is 11:45 p.m. Her phone is face down on the coffee table, but she can still feel it vibrating in her mind. Mark hasn't texted her back. She knows he's probably just tired or his phone died, but her heart is beating like she's being chased through a dark forest. Her chest feels tight. She feels a deep burning need to send just one more message, maybe a "Are you okay?" or a "Did I do something wrong?" just to make the pain stop. These three scenes, the thieves in London, the fading babies in the hospital, and Maya on her sofa, are all connected by a single invisible thread. They all tell the story of a biological blueprint that is built into every human being from the moment we are born. This blueprint is not a choice. It is not a personality flaw. It is a survival system called attachment, and it is the foundation upon which every relationship in your life is built. The birth of the blueprint. John Bowlby was a man who didn't believe in the common wisdom of his time. In the 1940s, most doctors and parents believed that showing too much affection to a child would spoil them. They thought that if you picked up a crying baby, you were teaching that baby to be weak and demanding. The goal of parenting back then was to create tough kids who didn't need anyone. Bowlby worked at the Tavistock Clinic in London during a time when the world was literally falling apart. The London Blitz had forced thousands of children to be evacuated from the city to live with strangers in the countryside, for their own safety. While these children were safe from the bombs, Bowlby noticed they were not safe from something much deeper, the pain of being separated from their parents. He began studying those 44 young thieves. He interviewed them and their families, looking for a pattern. He found something that changed the way we understand love forever. Out of the 44 teenagers, 17 had experienced a long separation from their mothers before they were 5 years old. Among the most troubled kids in the group, the ones who seemed to have no feelings for others at all, almost all of them had been taken away from their primary caregiver during their earliest years. Bowlby realized that when a child is separated from the person they rely on for safety, something breaks inside. He called this maternal deprivation. He argued that having a warm, continuous relationship with a caregiver wasn't just a nice-to-have part of childhood. It was a biological necessity. Without it, the architecture of need inside the brain grows crooked. He saw that these kids weren't bad because they wanted to be. They were acting out because they had never felt the solid ground of a secure connection. They were like kites with no one holding the string. Without that anchor, they simply drifted into the storms. The memory on the porch. Maya Vance didn't grow up in a war zone, and she certainly wasn't a thief. But as she sits in her apartment, the feeling in her chest is an echo of the same alarm system Bowlby discovered in those London children. To understand why Maya feels like she's dying because of a late text, we have to look at a Saturday afternoon 25 years ago. 7-year-old Maya is sitting on the front porch of her childhood home. She is wearing her favorite yellow dress, and her backpack is already zipped up. Her father, a man who smells like peppermint and expensive paper, is supposed to pick her up at noon for a trip to the zoo. 12 o'clock comes and goes. The sun moves across the sky. Maya watches every car that turns the corner. Each time she sees a silver sedan, her heart leaps. When the car passes by, her heart sinks. By 2 o'clock, she is still sitting there, her small fingers picking at the wood of the porch. Her mother comes to the door, looking tired. "He's not coming, Maya," she says. "He probably got busy at the office. Stop being so sensitive and come inside. You're making a scene for the neighbors." In that moment, Maya's brain was building its map of the world. The silent alarm in her head was screaming, "I am not important enough to remember. The person I love is gone, and if I show how much I hurt, I will be a nuisance." Maya's mother wasn't trying to be mean. She was following the same old advice Bowlby fought against, the idea that you shouldn't indulge a child's emotions. But by telling Maya to stop being so sensitive, she taught Maya that her needs were a problem to be solved, not a feeling to be comforted. Maya learned that if she wanted to stay connected to people, she had to monitor them constantly. She had to watch for the silver car that never turned the corner. She had to become a detective of love, always scanning for signs that she was about to be left behind. The biology of belonging. For a long time, people thought that babies loved their mothers simply because their mothers fed them. This was called the cupboard theory. The idea was that love was just a side effect of getting a full stomach. But Bowlby and later a scientist named Renee Spitz proved this was wrong. Spitz visited those hospitals where the babies were failing to grow despite having plenty of food. He noticed that the babies were kept in separate cribs with sheets hung over the sides so they couldn't see the other children. The nurses were told to work quickly and not to linger or talk to the babies. The goal was efficiency and hygiene. The result was horrifying. The babies became quiet. They stopped crying because no one ever came when they did. They became apathetic, which is a fancy word for giving up. Their bodies literally stopped growing because their brains didn't feel it was safe to invest energy in life if there was no one there to protect them. Connection, Spitz proved, was a nutrient just as real as vitamin D or protein. This is the architecture of need. We are born with a brain that is hardwired to seek out one or two specific people who will be our secure base. In the wild, a baby monkey who doesn't stay close to its mother gets eaten by a predator. A human baby who doesn't stay close to its tribe doesn't survive the winter. Our brains haven't changed much since those days. When you feel clingy or anxious in a relationship, it isn't because you are weak. It's because your brain has detected a threat to your survival. To your silent alarm, a partner who doesn't text back feels exactly like being a baby left alone in a dark forest. Your heart rate goes up, your breath gets shallow, and your mind begins to spiral because your biology is trying to save your life. The internal working model. By the time Bowlby finished his research, he had developed a concept that explains why Maya reacts to Mark the way she does. He called it the internal working model. Think of this as a mental map or a blueprint. When you are a child, you look at how your parents treat you and how they treat each other. From those observations, you draw a map of how relationships work. If your parents are consistent, if they pick you up when you fall and listen when you cry, your map says, I am worthy of love. People are generally reliable. I can explore the world because I have a safe place to return to. This is called secure attachment. But if your parents are inconsistent, if they are sometimes loving but sometimes cold, or if they are too busy like Maya's father, your map looks different. It says, love is unpredictable. People leave without warning. I have to work very hard to keep people close. This is the blueprint for anxious attachment. Maya's map is covered in warning signs. It tells her that silence is a sign of danger. It tells her that if she isn't constantly checking the status of her relationship, it will dissolve into nothing. When Mark doesn't reply, she isn't just looking at a phone screen. She is looking at her old map, and the map is telling her she's about to be abandoned on the porch again. The tragedy of the anxious attachment blueprint is that it often causes the very thing it fears. Because Maya feels so much panic, she might send 10 texts in a row. She might pick a fight when Mark finally calls, just to get a reaction from him. She might act in ways that feel crazy or too much, which can sometimes push a partner away. Bowlby saw this in the children he studied. They would scream and kick and protest the separation. They weren't being bad, they were trying to re-establish the connection by any means necessary. The kite and the anchor. In this book, we will use a specific image to understand this relationship, the anchor and the kite. Imagine a kite flying high in a blue sky. It is beautiful, free, and can see for miles. But a kite can only fly that high because there is someone on the ground holding the string. That person is the anchor. If the anchor is solid and steady, the kite can dance in the wind. If the string breaks, the kite doesn't fly higher, it tumbles to the ground. A secure relationship is one where both people take turns being the anchor and the kite. You feel safe enough to go out into the world, take risks, and be your own person because you know that when you come back, your anchor will still be there. For someone with anxious attachment, the string always feels like it's about to snap. They spend all their time looking down at the anchor, checking the knot, and worrying that the person on the ground is going to let go. They are so worried about the string that they forget to enjoy the flight. Maya has spent her whole life trying to be a kite without a string, or trying to tie herself to anchors who were made of sand. She never had a stable base, so she grew up believing that security was something she had to earn or steal or beg for. She didn't realize that the architecture of need was something she could rebuild from the inside out. Why this matters today. You might be wondering why we are talking about 1940s London or 1950s hospitals. It's because the lessons learned by John Bowlby are the keys to your freedom today. For decades, people were told that they were too needy or codependent. We were told that we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet and not care if someone texts us back. But the science of attachment tells us the opposite. Dependence is a fact of biology. We are social animals. Our nervous systems are literally co-regulated with the people we love. When your partner holds your hand, your blood pressure drops. When they look you in the eyes and tell you they love you, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel brave. We aren't meant to be islands. We are meant to be a mountain range, supporting each other. If you have anxious attachment, you aren't broken. You just have a very sensitive, silent alarm that was built during a time when you didn't feel safe. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from being alone. The good news is that while your internal working model was built in childhood, it is not set in stone. The brain is like a garden. You can pull up the old weeds and plant new seeds. You can learn to be your own anchor. You can learn to soothe that inner alarm so that it doesn't scream every time there is a gap in the conversation. The vision of a secure future. Imagine a version of Maya Vance 6 months from now. She is sitting in the same apartment. It's a Friday night, and Mark is out with his friends. He hasn't texted her for 3 hours. In the old days, Maya would be pacing the floor, checking his last seen status on WhatsApp, and imagining him meeting someone new at a bar. But the new Maya is different. She feels a small beep from her silent alarm, a tiny flutter in her chest, but she knows what it is now. She smiles at the feeling and says to herself, "That's just my old map talking. I am safe. I am worthy. Mark is just having fun." She puts her phone in a drawer. She picks up a book or starts a project she's excited about. She doesn't need Mark to be her only source of okayness, because she has built a secure base inside herself. She is no longer a kite terrified of the wind. She's a kite that knows how to fly, because she finally trusts the string. This transformation is what we call earned security. It is the process of taking that crooked architecture from your past and straightening the walls. It is the work of moving from a place where love feels like a panic attack to a place where love feels like coming home. In the chapters to come, we are going to look at the hard science of your brain, the strange experiments with monkeys that prove the power of touch, and the practical steps you can take to disarm your internal alarm. We will follow Maya as she learns to set boundaries, communicate her needs without feeling crazy, and eventually builds a love that doesn't just last but feels safe. You don't have to live in the anxious spiral forever. You don't have to be the child on the porch, waiting for a car that might not come. You are an adult now, and you have the power to build a new map. The architecture of your needs is beautiful, and it is time to build a house that is strong enough to hold all the love you deserve. Your journey from clingy to confident starts here. It starts with the realization that your need for connection is not a weakness, it is your greatest human strength. You just need to learn how to handle the string. Chapter 2: Why does my brain think I'm dying? The 4-year-old boy stood in the middle of a crowded train station, his small hand clutching nothing but air. Just a second ago, that air had been his father's jacket. One moment they were walking toward the platform, surrounded by the smell of diesel and the sound of hundreds of rushing feet. The next, a sea of tall coats and heavy bags pushed between them. The boy turned in a circle, but every face was a stranger. His heart began to hammer against his ribs like a trapped bird. His throat tightened. To a grown-up, this was a 5-minute delay. To the boy, the world had just ended. He wasn't just lost. His brain was screaming that he was about to die. He was found just a few minutes later, tucked behind a newsstand, sobbing so hard he couldn't catch his breath. When his father finally scooped him up, the boy didn't just hug him. He hit him. He cried and pulled away, then immediately clung tighter, digging his fingernails into his father's neck. It was a messy, confusing explosion of relief and rage. This near miss didn't leave a physical scar, but it revealed something deep inside every human being. We are wired to believe that being alone isn't just lonely, it is a life or death emergency. When you feel that familiar panic because a partner hasn't texted back, or when you feel your chest tighten because someone seems a little off, you aren't being dramatic. You aren't too much. You are experiencing a survival reflex that is millions of years old. Your brain is reacting to a late text the same way it would react to a predator lurking outside your cave. It sounds extreme, but to your nervous system, the threat of being left behind is the ultimate disaster. The cloth mother and the wire mother. In 1958, a psychologist named Harry Harlow wanted to know why we love. At the time, most experts thought babies only loved their mothers because the mothers provided food. They believed love was just a learned behavior. If a mother fed her child, the child would like her. If she stopped, the bond would vanish. Harlow suspected there was something deeper, something more physical and primal at work. He set up an experiment at the University of Wisconsin that would change how we understand the human heart forever. He worked with infant rhesus monkeys, which are very similar to humans in how their brains handle emotions. He placed these baby monkeys in cages with 2 different mother figures. The first mother was made of cold, hard wire. She had a wooden head and no personality, but she held a bottle of warm milk. If the scientists were right about food being the only thing that mattered, the monkeys should have loved this wire mother. The second mother was different. She didn't have any food at all. However, she was covered in soft tan light bulb warmed cloth. She felt soft. She felt safe. The result